You might want to mute the general camera right now. I don't know if it's the public speaker comment computer. If we could mute that, please.
Yeah. Yeah. But you don't have to use. Now, if it actually works, we'll see.
Can we stay for a little bit?
Sarah.
Yes. Hi.
Hi. I think we'll just we can do a little tech check before we start recording or streaming. I mean, whatever you think is.
It's I'm already streaming, so but when we call to order, I can hear you fine.
Yes.
I don't know if you have quorum yet, so and then we can wait till
you and Kim for sure. And actually, Rito's here, so we have in person and not in person, so we're good there.
Okay. I'll just hold tight until you're ready to call it to order, and then the stream looks good.
Great. Okay. So this is me talking. Yeah, it's not great, is it?
Well, then we go for anyone that's online speaking, then we'll all mute.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's terrible, but it's great. It will absolutely work.
This is giving me PTSD to hybrid teaching last
This
year.
is me speaking, Sarah.
Hi, Daniel.
This is me speaking.
Hi, William.
This works. Hi.
Thank you.
I'll try it.
This is me speaking.
Hi, Alexandra.
Good. Okay, great.
This is me speaking.
Hi, Troy.
Can you hear me okay?
Not.
There it goes, Dr. Powers.
Now it's muted. Now it's not muted.
Right, correct, yeah.
Hey, I hit the darn button. It just didn't work. That's all right. Some banged up thing here.
Can you mute Dr. Powers? Can we hear Roberto?
Testing 1, 2, 3. Mic check. Mic check.
Excellent, thank you. Deborah?
I am speaking.
Perfect. Anyone else in person that hasn't spoken?
I think that is all of us.
Okay.
Yes,
I'm re-
this is Greg Ripson.
Oh, hi, Greg. Thank you. I'm ready whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I will call us to order at 6:09 for the April regular meeting.
Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Andrade? Daniel, are you here? I don't think he can hear me. Is anyone near Daniel that can wave? Okay, Daniel, can you unmute and say you're here?
Oh, here.
Okay, Bowman.
Here.
If Violetta's not here?
No.
Okay, Clancy.
Here.
Cresswell?
Here.
Hillbrands?
Here.
Kerr?
Here.
Land?
Here.
Mana Hoppenworth? Absent? Ma is here. Martinsek. I think Ellen said she'd be absent. And Javar.
Present.
Powers?
Here.
And Zen.
Here.
So we have 11 people here. I make a motion to approve the agenda.
A second.
Second.
Okay. And then I'll do a roll call for agenda. Andrade?
Yes.
Clancy?
Yes.
Cresswell?
Yes.
Kerr?
Yes.
Land?
Yes.
Ma, yes. Martins, Menjivar.
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Zen.
Yes.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 11. I make a motion to approve the minutes from the March 15th, 2022 LSC special meeting. Have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, that was Land. Andrade,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Clancy,
Yes.
Cresswell,
Yes.
I also realized I didn't call Mr. Hilbrands for the agenda. I'm sorry. Hilbrands.
Yay.
Kerr,
Yes.
Land,
Yes.
Ma, yes. Menjivar,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Zen.
Yes.
Okay, the minutes for the March 15th meeting were approved. I make a motion to approve the minutes from the March 31st, 2022 LSC special meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, and last roll call. Andrade,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Clancy,
Yes.
Cresswell,
Yes.
Hilbrands,
Yay.
Kerr,
Yes.
Land,
Yes.
Ma, yes. Menjivar,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Zen.
Yes.
Okay, those are approved, and I will hand it over to Cassie for public comment. Thank you.
Okay, so first is Kelly Lish. Come on up. This is my chance to say that.
Give me a second. I'm still gonna put the timer on the screen.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Hi, my name is Kelly Lish. I'm the parent of a freshman here at Jones and 2 younger children in 5th and 7th grades. I'm running for parent representative on the Jones LSC. I wanted to introduce myself because I was unfortunately not able to make the candidate forum last month. And I feel it's important that you're able to put an actual face with my name and not just a statement and a picture. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge how wonderful it is to gather together in person again for a Jones LSC meeting after over 2 years of being virtual. While I acknowledge the accessibility and convenience that a virtual option provides, it is so wonderful to see people's faces. And I believe we'll be quickly reminded how in-person meetings help build relationships and trust, as well as being more productive and collaborative. Paul Axtell, in his book, Meetings Matter, says in-person meetings provide a sense of intimacy, connection, and empathy that is difficult to replicate via video. It's much easier to ask for attentive listening and presence, which creates the psychological safety that people need to sense in order to engage and participate fully. These are things I think are critical to the Jones community right now, and I am so happy that we are able to move toward building more connection and empathy in our meetings. The second thing I'd like to highlight is what a wonderful addition Christopher Burney is to the Jones community. I've been attending a number of the budget committee meetings over the past few months, and I have been very impressed with Mr. Burney's knowledge, attention to detail, and collaborative approach. Now, I did not have any interaction with the previous director of finance and operations, so this is in no way a comparison, but having worked with budgets and internal accounts with another CPS school for a number of years, I wanted to point out and acknowledge what a great resource he is for Jones. Thank you.
Thanks. And next, I think we have some online. Let me see here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Miss Savant. Your timing, Cassie, or do you want me to put the timer up for virtual people?
Timer is great if you want to put it up.
All right, give me one. Okay, I'll start the timer whenever you're ready. Whenever you start.
Should I start?
Okay. Hi, good evening. My name is Shabada Savant, and I am online auction chair for Friends of Jones. Online auction has started yesterday and will continue through 30th. We are still in need of more donation items, so I would request all parents to continue donating. We are accepting them until the end of this month. So if you have like event tickets or season tickets that you can donate, or maybe vacation homes, we are also accepting gift cards to your favorite restaurants, local businesses, things like that. So we're accepting all donations. So please do donate and support this event. Also, on behalf of Spring Benefit Chairs, I would like to urge all parents, if you haven't bought tickets to the Spring Gala, which is on 29th of April at Fairleigh, please do buy your tickets. I think the tickets are still on sale until 20th. So please do buy it. Support this event, this in-person. This is the first time in 2 years we are having an in-person event. So please do support it, support Friends of Jones. And thank you.
Thanks. Our next person is also online, Mr. Repchinsky.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to remind everyone that voting is this Thursday. It's not a complicated process. Just review the parameters and make sure that when you do visit to get your child's report card, and you do or have parent-teacher conferences, that you do exercise your right and your ability to vote. And then I have a question for the parent representatives, and this wouldn't apply to Roberto, but why did you not decide not to run again and continue on for another 2-year term? And do you feel that Jones is better off today than when you came on board 2 years ago? Does anyone wish to respond?
I can respond. Is this what you want, Cassie? You want people to respond now, or do you want to wait till the end of the public comment?
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't hear you. You froze. Could you repeat that, please?
Me or Greg?
Oops. He froze, or he did freeze. He just didn't stream for a little while.
Okay.
Okay, we'll let you repeat. Did you want him to repeat the entire statement? Yes. Okay, sorry, Greg.
Okay, can you hear me now? Everyone, okay. So again, I wanted to emphasize to all the parents who are participating tonight that voting is on Thursday, and it's very important to use your exercise, your right to vote for our parent representatives. And why it takes a little bit of effort, but it shouldn't take more than 5 to 10 minutes to show your credentials based on the parameters that have been circulated to everyone, and vote for the candidates you feel are best suited to represent your interests on the board in the coming 2 years. And then I had a question for wouldn't apply to Roberto, for those board members who are parent representatives. Why did you decide not to run again for another 2-year term? And also, do you feel that Jones is better off today than when you came on board 2 years ago?
Cassie, did you hear that?
Yes.
Do you want us to respond now, or do you want to wait to the end of public comment?
I think it's fine. It's fine if it's a question.
I mean, I could go. I'd be happy to go.
Yes, I want you to go, and then Deborah wants to go.
Okay, this was my 3rd term as an LC member, and so, but really the main reason I'm decided not to run was because I'm expanding my business. And as you know, if you've been on LSC, it can be quite a lot of work and volunteer hours if you really want to put your best foot forward. And so I just think there seems to be a lot of interest in the community to run, and I think there's a fabulous group of parents running. Whether or not I think it's better, I think we did improve a lot of transparency, specifically with respect to budget and equity and health and safety. So people might have opinions about if they think we were positive or negative, but I think that I'll leave that up to the individual to judge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg, I'd be happy to give you my take on that question too. I am the parent of a diverse learner here at Jones and have spent a lot of time being very active on LSC things. But we have 2 more years here at Jones, and my student needs my advocacy and my attention. And I can't do both to the extent that I would like to do. And so I've chosen to support my student instead.
Fair enough.
Oops. Go ahead, Roberto.
Can everybody hear me? Mr. Rapinski, so thank you for joining us. I know you said it didn't apply to me, but I would like to respond, if I may. I think that the 2 years that I've been involved on the LSC, and even before that, I joined the Jones school community. My family and I joined the Jones school community in 2019, and I have been attending every LSC, as I like to say, except for one when we went to virtual, and I missed that one LSC meeting. And since I've been part of this LSC, I think we have done, as an individual and as a collective, really great things. And some of the things that we have done is we've updated and revised the student dress code to be more inclusive and welcoming. We have amplified students' voice as far as when it comes to race relations. The students, specifically the Jones Black Coalition, they advocated hard for a lot of variety of things. And there were 4 points. One was more, they wanted teachers and the staff to do anti-racism, anti-bias training. They needed a school culture. We hired our culture and climate coordinator, Pablo Lopez, who's, my understanding, has hit the ground running, has been put through the fire. And so we've done a lot of things that we have really advocated for the students. Another issue is the school resource officer. It was clear that the students and the staff, from my perspective, didn't think we needed an SRO in the school. And that instead of an SRO, we needed social emotional learning. We needed a culture and climate coordinator. We needed to build on creating this inclusive and just positive environment. And I think I have tried, or I have attempted in many ways, to connect with many individuals and stakeholders, from our staff to our administrators, to our students, to our parents. So I think we have done a lot of great things. I'm really proud of the work that the Equity Committee has done, that the Health and Safety Committee has done, that the Budget Committee has done, in trying to make certain things more transparent, holding each other accountable. And do I think there were areas of improvement in our dialogue and communicating with each other and collaborating? Absolutely. There have obviously been tension between members on this LSC and the administrative staff. But I think we've all have tried to move in a real constructive, in a constructive and positive approach. And a lot of times there are friction there. And I think we did get off to, all of us, I believe all of us got off on just the wrong footing. But I think we have, overall have done a lot of great things. So, as you know, I'm running because I believe in supporting everyone in this school beyond my own household. And if my child is a benefit of the wonderful people that are here to create that inclusive environment, then that's better for all of us. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roberto. Next is Charlotte Paul. But is she? Okay, I was gonna say she's not online either. Okay. Then Michelle.
Get my fancy setup here for you.
Tell me when you're ready. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Michelle Kerr. I'm the chair of Friends of Jones FOJ. This statement received an affirmative vote from the FOJ Board of Directors that it could be shared on their behalf. We want to reiterate that this is not a statement about the current investigations against Dr. Powers and should not be seen as a support of any one person or group. FOJ continues to remain neutral and honors the process that is underway. On February 18th, 2022, FOJ was named in a letter penned by Cassie Criswell, Sarah Ma, Lenny Mana Hoppenworth. On March 15th, 2022, FOJ was contacted via email by a media source who shared a false claim that members of the LSC have been communicating that FOJ performed unauthorized fundraising for the boys sports teams, which has contributed to financial disparities between them and the girls teams. As a result, FOJ finds it necessary to correct this misinformation to provide clarity around FOJ's purpose and practices. FOJ is a 501c3 organization whose mission is to maintain Jones as a premier college preparatory school by building community, coordinating volunteers, raising and distributing funds. The funds that FOJ raises do not directly go to Jones College Prep, JCP. The funds go directly to FOJ and are used to support the achievement of our mission. FOJ does not fundraise on behalf of any specific department, club, or sports team. As stated in our fundraising disclaimer, the funds FOJ raises are controlled by and distributed by FOJ. FOJ maintains the funds raised in bank accounts under the FOJ organization name. The predominant amount of the funds raised are used to award grants at FOJ's sole discretion in response to voluntary and self-directed proposals from any JCP student organization, and other JCP-related constituent for the purpose of enriching the JCP experience. FOJ follows a defined grant process for awarding all grants, which includes the validation with the Jones administration that the requests are compliant with CPS guidelines and do not have another funding source. The grant process can be found on the FOJ website. Grant payments are made when accompanied by all proper and required documentation. Payments are in the forms of reimbursement to the requester or by FOJ being invoiced directly by the vendor, for example, when it is a non-CPS vendor. To date, this fiscal year, all submitted grants have been approved with the exception of two. One because a JCP budget existed to cover the cost, and another when the request was withdrawn before the vote could be taken. FOJ's annual budget is shared and is voted on during a public FOJ board meeting. The budget outlines any money spent outside the grant process, for example, for teacher appreciation and D&I activities. FOJ's annual spend against budget is evaluated monthly. FOJ accounts and accounting practices are audited annually using a third-party certified accounting firm. FOJ requests that any questions about the FOJ grant process, grants awarded, and other operations be directed to FOJ. Misinformation about our practices can harm the people that both of our organizations are meant to help: our students, faculty, and the Jones community at large. Respectfully, Friends of Jones Board of Directors.
I just want to respond to that really quick. As a student who has benefited from FOJ, I just want to say thank you to the FOJ Board of Directors. A lot of students in the Jones community benefit from your support and your continued ability to give grants to students. And I want to remind the rest of the council that given that Jones is about putting students first, I think FOJ is an institution which really does prioritize that. And I want to just thank you for all your efforts on behalf of the Jones community, on behalf of the students, and on behalf of the parents.
Thank you.
Okay, I think the next speaker is online. Ms. Temple Moore. Let's see.
I'll pass.
Great, go ahead.
No, I said I'll pass. I'm just here to listen and learn.
Okay. Next is Susie Hett.
Hi, I did request longer than 3 minutes to speak, and my husband also requested time to speak. So to condense things, I'll take my additional time as well as his time. We've put our statements together and I'll read them both.
Cassie, what do you want me to put on the timer?
Like 6 is fine.
Okay. Go ahead, Susie.
I would like to correct the record on a few issues that have been addressed by this LSC recently. The first issue relates to the reasons for the resignation of the girls' former track coach. The second issue relates to a statement made by the LSC chair regarding IHSA policy. The supposed purpose of the special meeting held on February 22nd was to gain information about the sudden resignation of the girls' former head track coach. However, the letter sent to the CEO and Inspector General of CPS from members of the LSC, dated February 18th, 3 days prior to the special meeting, gave reason for the resignation of the former girls' head track coach. The letter states, the girls' head track coach resigned mid-season in response to an underlying issue with lack of sufficient support and resources for the girls' team versus the boys' track team. It is this reason why these two issues, girls' track team, departure of coach, resource equity, are listed together as point 5 in the agenda. It is apparent that these two areas of concern were tied together because they had already been written as cause and effect in the letter. Prior to the February 22nd meeting, the LSC received 2 critical pieces of information regarding the resignation of Mr. Reeves. One was a submitted statement from Evelyn Hett. The other was evidence, in the coach's own words, providing his reasons to the team as to why he was resigning from his position as the girls' head track coach. These reasons did not include a lack of support or resources for the girls' team as compared to the boys' team. The LSC confirmed they received evidence of the coach's reasons for resigning, but no further communication from the LSC regarding the evidence going forward. To our knowledge, it was intentionally ignored. We were surprised the LSC proceeded with a public open session meeting, despite being provided with information that the coach's resignation involved a matter concerning a student. In addition, we were disheartened with how the meeting was conducted. It was used as a public platform for people to voice their opinions about a student. In addition, members of the LSC offered their expertise, partial opinions disguised as definitive facts, relating them to a matter involving a student. At the start of the February meeting, Ms. Cresswell presented information she gathered from the IHSA regarding cross-country track field policy. The point presented read, conversation with Craig Garber, Assistant Executive Director, IHSA, with responsibility for cross-country and track 2/22/22. If a school has a girls' team, girl must practice and compete with that team. Coaches may coach both boys and girls. Team members can have individualized instruction from someone who is not a coach. During this meeting, Ms. Cresswell stated this was relevant background information because, quote, we should keep that, the point presented, in mind in terms of what options are in terms of providing what athletes need. I contacted Ms. Cresswell multiple times and asked her motivation for investigating this specific IHSA cross-country track field policy. I asked the question she asked in order to obtain this information and the purpose of presenting this information. After 3 attempts, Ms. Cresswell responded by letting me know that she could not understand my avid interest in the topic, what purpose I had seeking this information, or why I was due the information. Perhaps Ms. Cresswell does not understand that a mother should have an avid interest in topics that directly impact their child. It may have also been lost on Ms. Cresswell that there were no other female runners that had been practicing with a boys' team for nearly a year, and no other female runners that were advocating to continue to practice with individuals of similar pace and opposite gender. Although the information presented did in fact single out one student, Ms. Cresswell made it clear in her response to me that the information was presented because ultimately Dr. Powers was responsible for ensuring compliance with athletic rules and regulations at Jones. Mr. Garber, along with Athletic Director Mr. Stroke, were contacted regarding the information Ms. Cresswell presented. Both provided the information directly stated in the IHSA handbook found on page 113 that addresses a girl practicing on a boys team during the regular season. The handbook reads, question, can a girl who competes in the girls' season participate in a practice with a boys' team if both the boys and the girls' seasons are the same? Answer, yes, provided both programs are in the same season. No, if the programs are in different seasons, as is the case, for example, in tennis, swimming, soccer, volleyball, and gymnastics. As it pertains to this specific policy, it is clear that a female student athlete is permitted to practice with a boys' team, and that the school and the principal are in compliance with this IHSA rule. I brought this to Ms. Cresswell's attention and asked her to correct her error, but to my knowledge, she has not done so. This entire situation has been very difficult for our family and especially for Evelyn. The February 22nd meeting made Evelyn a public figure in the Jones community, as well as created unwanted media attention. We feel the LSC overstepped their bounds in calling this meeting and lacked judgment and foresight on how this would affect a student. If the LSC had concerns about sports programming and had discovered inequalities between teams at Jones, those things could have been addressed with different coaches and the athletic director present. However, when it became apparent that the meeting could potentially focus on a student, it should have never happened. We would like to ensure that in the future, any incidents involving students are handled properly and carefully by the appropriate departments within CPS and within the school, and not addressed during public LSC meetings. We have raised our concerns regarding the February 22nd meeting with the proper departments, including the Office of LSC Relations. Thank you for giving us this time to speak.
Thanks, Ms. Hett. I think, yeah, why don't you guys go ahead? Because did Jacqueline Smith get in yet? Okay. Go ahead. I'm going to cue who's their hand first. Alex and then William.
So I originally asked this question back during the special meeting to discuss the letter that you, Sarah, and Lenny penned. However, it was only ever answered during closed session, this yes or no question. And from what Susie said, I do think it's relevant again, especially relevant for you to answer in front of the public body and whoever will be watching. So I want to publicly ask again, Cassie, when you wrote your letter, did you receive consent to include personnel matters from all parties involved before you sent the letter and publicized it?
We did not.
Hi, I just wanted to bring up something really quickly, Susie, that you said, which was that the LSC should not have publicly handled this issue. And I would like to apologize. I was one of the people who suggested that we hold a special meeting to address this issue. So it is partially my fault. My aim in doing so was to address the disparity between teams. But obviously you made a really good point, which is that as it became clear that a single student would be discussed, that shouldn't have happened. So I wanted to apologize for doing that. That was not acceptable. And I do think that you made an excellent point, which is that going forward, the LSC should handle matters regarding students with a greater degree of sensitivity. And given that it's something I ask a lot, I felt that I should acknowledge that that was definitely something that should have happened in this situation, and it is partially my fault that that didn't. So yeah, I wanted to thank you for bringing this up and discussing this with the council. And it's important that we have these conversations as we keep moving forward. So thank you so much.
Roberto?
Yeah, so I just want to address a few things. One, I think I agree, protecting students' information and identity is absolutely important. Should be clear across the board. The other thing that needs to be clear is that when certain issues do come up that impact a larger group of students, those things need to be addressed. That's what the local school council is about. It's a public body to allow individuals and groups of individuals to surface issues that are impacting them. And so this sports issue was coming up regularly, and it was coming up on individuals, contacting individuals. It was coming up in emails that we were receiving from students about their concerns. And so I think it is important to surface whether there is a larger problem and whether those things need to be addressed. Because otherwise, what happens? We leave them in the dark for no one to know what is going on, for the public to not be aware of certain issues that might be happening in the school community. I'm about transparency, and I think it's important that these things are surfaced and are addressed by this body, by the community as a whole. So I think that is incredibly important for every student, for every family member, for every community member to address this LSC, the administrative staff, to surface concerns and problems that they feel are not being resolved in a timely manner or appropriately.
Thanks, Roberto. Sarah, do you want to go? And then Will, you can have a second comment.
Sure. I was not in favor of having that February meeting. I did ask Cassie, and then maybe she to ask IHSA what the rules were, because I wanted to know what they were, because I felt like I wasn't sure if you could have a private coach or whatever. And so I did ask her to get that information. The one thing that hindsight allows us is that you, Miss Het, and your daughter and your family didn't have to participate in the meeting. And I know that's easy to say now, and I do apologize if was any harm. And I know that this harm doesn't just go away when you turn the meeting off. And I don't know how to move forward from that to make it right. I'm not sure if anything, will make it right at this point. It's already been done. And so, yeah, I even, I think we just have to all be very cognizant of our participation in public meetings and what that means. And that goes for all council members and future council members is, it is a public body, and democracy is messy, but it doesn't have to harm people. So thank you.
Will?
Yeah, I wanted to respond really quick. Sorry for speaking twice. I wanted to respond really quick to the last two comments. Roberto, you make a very good point that it's the responsibility of the LSC to bring up these issues. But I want to reiterate, I don't want to speak for you, Ms. Het, but I want to reiterate your perspective, which is that when we bring up these issues, we need to be mindful of student privacy and sensitivity and the damage that bringing up these issues in a public setting can do. Alex often brings up the point that impact matters more than intent. And despite the fact that our intent was to help, the impact that we may have had on people involved in this situation was clearly more important. And so I do think it's important that we acknowledge that the public meeting was an error, and that going forward, the LSC needs to be mindful of these things when we're mindful of student privacy when we're considering these issues. Secondly, I would like to respond to Sarah's comment that Susie and Evelyn did not need to participate in this meeting. That is technically true, but I think it's unreasonable to expect that when anyone feels they are being brought up or targeted by an institution, that they would ignore that. I think it's very important to consider that, again, impact matters more than intent. The actions that we took have hurt people, and it's important that we acknowledge these going forward and not discuss, what could have happened. I think it's unreasonable to expect people to not feel like they have the right to respond when an institution discusses an issue they're involved in. That's what the LSC exists for, so people can get involved with their school and be a participant in our school as a democratic institution. And when doing that, we do need to consider whether or not we are having a democracy in a healthy and constructive way, and a way that is safe for students. So as much as everything that everyone else said is true, I think we need to put the emphasis on Ms. Het's point, which is that students come first, just like in the LSC bylaws. We need to consider our students first when we are making these decisions.
Okay, we have one more public speaker. I think that is her on the phone on the Meet. Jacqueline Smith.
Oh, hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, so actually if you could give me a second, I am driving and I'm just gonna need to pull over real quick so that I can read what I have without being hazardous. Hold on one second. Okay, I am ready to go. So I am a parent of a sophomore student at Jones, and I just wanted to make a comment regarding the principal evaluation and data report that I know is on the agenda for tonight. So I know there was an extensive list requested of you, Dr. Powers, with documentation provided. And I just want to express that I hope you were able to provide the majority of these documents. I know, it's sometimes hard to comment before the meeting has happened. But, I know that it had been mentioned that this was like an extensive list. And so I was curious. I'm actually a faculty member at another CPS high school. And I was just kind of curious what documents were being requested. So I took a look at the list and I'm just a little confused about which parts are difficult to produce. As a faculty member, I would be able to pull any of these meeting minutes for our school in a second. They're all in our shared schools Google Drive. They're accessible to everyone in the school community, literally just a quick search for us. And I'm hoping that it's the same for you all. And then as far as the data being requested, especially the disaggregated data by race, diverse learning, SES status, et cetera, where we often find achievement gaps, I would hope that this data is being regularly reviewed in-house anyways. And again, that data is very easily accessible through Aspen or Dashboard, depending, which type of data you're looking for. But again, like those are reports that you could compile in less than 10 minutes, or, they're accessible. So again, I'm hoping that all of these things were able to be provided. And in my opinion, not as an administrator, but just as a counselor with my limited access, I could provide all of these things. So I'm just a little confused why they're not already being reviewed in-house. I'm hoping that maybe they are all provided. I don't know. It was uncomfortable for me to see that because, again, these are conversations that I hope are happening already, not just because they're prompted by, principal review, but because they're things that are important to students, important to achievement, important to support. Another thing I noticed is that there wasn't a request for behavioral health team minutes, but I'm hoping that that's something that's happening as well. And so, Dr. Powers, I'm just wondering when the time comes, if there are things that weren't able to be provided, if you could talk a little bit about why those can't be provided and also how this list might help you to reflect and grow as a leader. Again, because I think these are all things that are really essential to the school community and to ensuring that all students are having a positive experience and being supported appropriately and addressing any gaps that might arise. So that is all, and thank you for your time. I don't know how to mute myself again.
You did it.
Thanks, Ms. Smith. And so that, I think, concludes our speakers. Sarah, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I felt like Michelle and FOJ, I don't know if she's still there, deserved a comment or a response. I'd be happy to talk more offline. I don't recall saying to the media that FOJ was doing unauthorized fundraising. I'm not sure if it was misinterpreted or not, or it was someone else who said it, but I know how the grant process works, and I think we were maybe discussing disparities between fundraising, not necessarily Friends of Joan as a source, but maybe fundraising at the school level. So again, happy to talk more offline, but I just wanted to make sure that she got at least some answer from someone. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah, for the response. It was a news reporter. I would imagine that they interpreted things like they had seen and heard and read up from the letter. So again, it was more for us to correct the record since it's out there in the public space more than accusing anyone of doing it. I thought the board thought it was important that if it was said and someone thinks that and hears that, or it does appear in the news, that we've corrected it.
Thank you.
I got it.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So I just need one, acknowledge Ms. Lish for highlighting Mr. Burney. He has been absolutely amazing. So I just want to echo that. He's just been just a wonderful person and a wonderful addition to the school. So I really do appreciate it. Number two, I do have to apologize to everyone here, members on the LSC, and to the public in person and virtually, that I'm going to have to leave shortly. So I won't be able to stay for the entire meeting. So I do want to apologize up front. But I absolutely appreciate everyone coming today. I am missing a face, and I want to shout out to Mr. Slater. I miss you, Mr. Slater. I wish you were here. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we have some items over $2,500 to approve. And then will we be able to do these budget transfers this evening too? And is that more under the discussion of the budget, Sarah?
I would like to do the approvals and that budget transfer when Mr. Burney's on the call. Get those done, and then we can do a general budget update later. But those would be great to knock out. Let me share the screen. Share. The first is $9,750 for AP testing from 26205 for student testing licenses. The payees learn by doing. We really need to get that done. I'm going to move to the cement repair. We have, looks like courtyard concrete repair and the weight room wall. And maybe Dr. Powers can talk a little bit more about that. That's $4,200. It's going to be from general fees. And we need to talk a little bit about these next two. Auditorium theater, not to exceed $35,000, and oh geez. And the Palmer House Hilton, this is also for prom, and it's not to exceed $35,000. So I'm going to stop presenting. So Albert IO is something that we had in the budget last year, so it's an expense that we were expecting. The concrete seems like a general maintenance repair. And then is Mr. Burney on the call?
He's coming up.
Oh, he is. Oh, he's live. The $35,000 not to exceed, if he wants to talk a little bit about that, I'll let him talk about that and that the amount.
Sure, thank you. Thanks, Troy. So ironically, both senior prom and graduation are around 31,000 and some change. As we've done in the past, we like to allow some contingency so we don't go back for a special meeting over $300, $400, $1,000 to not waste people's time, but be cognizant of people's time. If we increase it to 35,000, which we thought would be appropriate for both of these expenses, and cap it at 35,000, as we've done before, that would make a little more sense and be more efficient for this entire process. But again, that's why we have the cap of 35,000. But both invoices, which I believe in the contracts were attached as well, come to around 31,000 and some change, both of them.
Alexandra?
Sorry, just quickly to go back to something Sarah said about Albert.io. One of my teachers who uses that platform told us like a couple weeks ago that they were under the impression that our contract had ended and we no longer were allowed the use of that platform. So I'm not sure if that could be a reason for funding for it to not show up in the budget. But then also, if that is the case, I do think it's something we should consider refunding, since it's a pretty valuable resource that I've used in a class at least once a year since my sophomore year.
It was in the budget. It was in the budget. We just haven't bought it yet this year. Mr. Mitchell?
I was just gonna kind of reiterate what you just said, that it's something that there was when the invoice was still being paid, messages were sent to anyone who had a subscription that the subscription was ending. So many people got the alert, but no one got the information that things were paid for. So there is definitely value. Everything you said, Alexander, is absolutely correct. And so we're fine now. It's been allocated and we're moving forward. You should still have access to it with APs right around the corner. So it is a great tool. It is a good investment for the entire student.
Mr. Bernie, do we have authorization to pay these vendors more than $10,000?
Yes. So, and thank you for bringing that up. With high schools, things are a little different than elementary schools. There are the expenses, especially with larger high schools such as Jones. Expenses oftentimes exceed the $10,000 threshold to write a check. We have a limitation to physically write a check of $10,000. What School Financial Services has allowed in the past, and I've contacted them with regard to this fiscal year, they've allowed us, for those vendors who are facilitators, those venues, and basically the expense is with the venue, as with prom and also with graduation. They will lift, provided that we provide a signed contract by the Department of Real Estate and Risk Management, which we have. This has all been vetted by the proper authorities of CPS. They will lift that cap of $10,000 for that vendor for that purpose and will allow us to write that check.
Perfect. And just to remind everyone, this is pass-through money. So we collect money for graduation and we collect money for prom. This just allows us to be the facilitator. Any other questions? Roberto?
So for the graduation and prom, I'd like to know if students will be required to pay a fee. So Sarah just mentioned that this is passed through. So this is funds that the school is collecting, student fees, right? Will there be additional costs passed on to students for both prom and for graduation? And if so, what will those costs be?
In here. Very good. The answer is yes. Prom, there is a ticket price for the prom because it is a elective participation on the part of the students to be involved in it. So there is a ticket price for that, which came out to how much this year? $125, which is very comparable to what it's been in the past as well. For graduation and other senior-related events, there is a senior graduation fee, which covers caps and gowns. It helps cover the venue and many, many other things related to, senior needs that are not elective, meaning they don't choose to participate like prom does. And that was 110, or did we raise that? I believe that was 125 as well. Okay. And that's all been submitted. And again, anyone who qualifies for fee waivers does not have to pay that full cost.
Those fee waivers have been adjusted to the students' accounts already for graduation.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Powers. Thank you, Mr. Bernie.
Alexandra?
Okay. Oh yeah, so you brought up fee waivers and I was just wondering if like what the requirements, I guess, are, just so you could say it now for anyone listening to, for a student to then qualify for a fee waiver for prom?
The fee waivers are based on students qualifying by under federal regulations for what's called free and reduced lunch. Now, of course, in CPS, everyone has a free lunch. So it's actually a qualifying for fee waivers that way, either free or reduced, depending on the level of income and other family factors. We don't make those determinations. We collect the information and then it is submitted and the family is either approved or not approved.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, I'm going to make a motion. Okay, I make a motion to approve the following check requisitions: $9,750 to Learn by Doing, $4,200 to the Hardy Corporation, not to exceed $35,000 to the Auditorium Theater, and not to exceed $35,000 for the Palmer House Hilton. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay. Roll call. Andrade?
Yes.
Bowman?
Yes.
Clancy?
Yes.
Cresswell?
Yes.
Hilbrands?
Yay.
Kerr?
Yes.
Land?
Yes.
Ma, yes. Menjivar?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Zen?
Yes.
Okay, those are approved. All right, next, I want to talk about this budget transfer. Let me bring up a slide. Oh, geez. Give me a second. It's complicated. Mr. Burney, why don't you give a little background while I bring up the slide? This is for the personnel.
Certainly. With the budget transfers, and I'm going to see which slides you bring up first before I start talking. In particular, there's a process. Well, let me allow the slides to come up. Okay. I believe what Ms. Ma is alluding to, thank you, Troy, is alluding to is what we're referring to as a Fund 124 payback. Fund 124 are essentially our internal accounts funds that are transferred from our checking account into our actual budgeted funding. When we do book transfers, when we utilize those fees collected for student fees for student events, we have to, if we can't write the check for it, we have to transfer those funds into the regular budget. If we're opening up buckets, positions, things of that nature, we can't do that from the checking account. So what we do is transfer that money. Last year, the LSC agreed, along with the administration, to utilize said 124 or our internal accounts funds to fund 3 positions and also buckets to sustain us through some of the summer activities. Subsequently, we have to pay that money back. Normally, it's done through internal accounts, meaning our checking account. As everyone knows, there has been a shortfall because of COVID of our revenue that's been normally generated through Troy's hard work with rentals, parking lot, anything, churches, community partners that generated roughly 500 to 600,000 maybe.
450 to 500.
Yeah. So That's a lot of revenue lost. That being said, we did not have, in our thoughts, ample funding to really return that money. We could have, but it would have put us in a slight disadvantage. Let me say that we could have done it. What was the smarter move, we thought, was to utilize budgeted funds, which we were able to do once we got the approval. Budgeted funds that are already either not earmarked for anything specifically or for things that we could sort of hold off on. We thought this would be a better financial move to retain funds that we can control, because what happens with budgeted funds, if you don't use them, CPS gets it back. They don't roll over. So if we have to pay a bill back, let's use those funds and retain the funds that we have more control over and the autonomy to sort of do the things that we need to do specifically for the school. So that was the idea behind utilizing and identifying budget lines. And that's what is being displayed, I believe, here by Ms. Ma. I was able to go through the budget and identify areas where we had funding that was not earmarked for anything specifically yet. Some things were, for example, some of the MFT money. I am proposing that we utilize to pay some of this back. And I know that MFT money was initially earmarked, a big portion of it. We did take care of the SAT testing. We paid that bill. That was a priority, absolutely. A big portion of that was also to do renovations in the north building, correct? All right. Realistically, we have 8 weeks of school left, 9 weeks of school left. To pull something off like that at this point of the year, getting 3 bids and the process that you have to go through to even create the requisition to get the vendors out here, it's time consuming. And we're fighting a clock right now. And the likelihood of that happening and starting before June 30th, again, our funds expire June 30th. This probably would not have happened. And we would have potentially lost this money, at least a portion of it. So with those things considered, we thought that it might be best to utilize not only MFT funds, but there's a whole list of funds here. And I think we should go through them just so everyone is clear. And Sarah, if you could help walk through this a little bit, just to sort of identify, what funding sources, and I'll assist here, but what funding sources were used to pay back. And I did not mention this total, even though it's displayed. It's 367,000, and sorry, I don't have my glasses on, 400
Yeah.
and
367, 450, 48. I'm trying to see if I have
450,
one.
367, 450. So it's quite a bit of money. Lines are salvage lines that are directly related to personnel, has nothing to do with student supplies, equipment, resources.
I don't hear him.
$20,000 less. Ooh. Sorry, and I apologize for all the details.
You should be back in.
The screen keeps freezing, Ms. Bowman says. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah. I think you're very animated. So
Should I continue? Oh, yeah. So I'm blaming it on Sherry.
Oh.
While we're waiting for that to come back, Mr. Bernie, I just wanted to tell you how much I really appreciate your less painful for us. You're right, it's a huge amount of money.
It is.
Like, well, we don't want to have those kind of surprises. But looking at the spreadsheet, I had a chance to review the budget presentation before I came tonight. And it made everything crystal clear, made it easy to understand. This would be very easy to support your changes because of the way that you present all of this. And I wanted to say thank you, how much I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. I do appreciate the compliment. And again, thank you, Dr. Powers, and everyone else who has weighed into making this hopefully make sense to everyone and be in the best interest of the school. Are we back on?
Yeah.
Okay.
For the moment.
For the moment. All right. I apologize, everyone. I'll try to be quicker about this, but longer the short, I think I left off with positions and pointer lines when there's a difference in salaries, when we staff people, when people make changes in, I'm no longer on, or my wife is no longer on I'm on my wife's insurance now. So now I'm dropping CPS's insurance. That money falls back to the school. So there are various reasons why we have these pockets of money that, you know, what they call them are encumbrance adjustments. Every payroll funds that fall back into our budget on these pointer lines accrue. So it's not like we've had this money all year and never said anything. This is over time. Every pay period, every 2 weeks, money's dropped back. So I just want to be clear about that as well. So that being said, there are pointer lines. There are monies that are just contingency money that's left on miscellaneous lines that haven't been really earmarked for anything. Some of these are OST funds, some of these are MFT funds, some of these are the re-engagement funds, but everything that's been presented, and I don't know if Sarah can display or share the screen again, aren't coming directly from student supplies or student fees or things that students really need. These are sort of, I don't want to call it extra because we could certainly use it for other things, but this is a huge priority to get us out of a hole, quite honestly. And we've tried to strategize as presented in one of the last budget meetings that was approved by the LSC, so we don't find ourselves in that position next year or any years moving forward. It's stressful to wonder for those who are affected, especially a person like myself who has to create the budget and takes great pride in not having anyone lose their job, not removing resources from students who really need them. This is an opportunity for us to be creative. And in a very legal way, and CPS is okay this, they are just awaiting the LSC to say yay or nay in support of said budget transfers in order to pay back our debt. Sarah, did you have anything to add? Because I know we've had a lot.
No, yeah, I was trying to get a file that was bigger, but
Let me turn her up.
No, Sarah. Where's this thing?
I was trying to get a file that people could see better, but they have it and can review it. Yeah, you know, I think this is a compromise that we're making, and that the compromise being that we weren't able to spend the MFT funds per the plan. And I know a lot of schools also had trouble spending those funds, and using those money that's been returned to 115 for, like, as he was describing the pointers, I missed a lot of that, but I think this is where we're creative, and then it allows us to have a much more robust internal accounts budget that we can present next month, and not use all of the student fees for personnel. So I'm in favor of this. It is a compromise.
Dr. Powers?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on something that Mr. Burney had said. This is regarding the changes in cost for personnel. Whenever we have vacancies and we're filling and have to budget for people that we have not yet hired and maybe not even identified, we set a standard position on the salary schedule as at our budgeted point. It's, lane 2, step 2 as kind of an average. And then if we ended up hiring people that don't cost lane 2 and step 2, either they're still in lane 1, which means bachelor's degree, lane 2 would be master's degree, or they have no prior experience, or they're transferring from outside of CPS, that's where we end up with a significant difference. Generally speaking, we try to err on the side of caution, have enough to cover because we haven't made decisions on the hiring for some of those individuals. It varies from year to year because, for example, this year for this school year, we hired approximately 6 people for positions that people had to be replaced. So we had to estimate what those positions were going to cost, and they tended to come in a little bit lower.
If there are no more questions, I'd be happy to make a motion. I'm sorry, I just don't know if you need me to pause before I speak or. Can you guys hear me? Well, Kim can. Cassie, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Sarah.
I'm still.
So I think it's just a speaker thing.
Let me know when I should make the motion. I'll be in person next time. I had COVID, everybody, so.
You're back.
Okay. Shall I make a motion? Roberto?
Roberto's question.
Okay.
So we're paying back CPS, right? I'm trying to understand, how do we owe CPS $135,000? Because, right, at least from the slide before, it showed the positions that we were paying from internal accounts, right? Those internal accounts supposedly are funds that the school had, and we paid it for this year. CPS then changed the model that they were going to give us. They were going to pay for the assistant principal for three positions, I think, right? No, that hasn't changed. Oh, I thought there was something that we discussed at the last LSC meeting where we would not have to pay for those positions.
For
next year. I see.
We're still finishing this year.
There were 3 teaching positions
Okay.
that were funded separately, and each school also has 3 quota positions: a principal, a clerk, and a counselor.
Right.
So that's across the system, but that has not changed.
Right. But that will change as far as like when we move these 3 positions for next school year.
With the funds that we will have for 3 additional positions overall, it helps us essentially to fund everything we currently have, in terms of staff levels.
Right.
So this way we don't have to give up that money, because I think what Mr. Bernie's trying to do is we've got one big pile of money that at June 30th it goes poof.
Right. CPS will sweep
and then
the
we have
account.
the money that we get to keep, and he's trying to make sure that this money that we get to keep is not used when we can use some of the money that will poof to pay back what CPS is expecting, right?
Correct. And I think I understand Roberto's core question here. If I'm understanding it correctly, you thought that it appeared that why do we owe CPS money, first of all, if we had paid for this out of our 124, our internal accounts funds. So this is what happens. The fiscal year starts July 1st, every school year, July 1st. We are not given our budgets until, well, lately it's been a little better, like till the 3rd week or so of July. It's been later than that in past years, which puts us in a disadvantage. Not having that budget on day one, no one gets paid. There are no buckets. There are no positions. nothing happens, I can't purchase anything. But ideally, the positions, that's the most important thing. And that's where this $367,000 that CPS says, okay, guys, until your budget loads, we're going to give you these positions and these buckets. So all of your summer programming that is occurring, people will be compensated for and won't have to wait on a paycheck for the almost 2 months that it would take, given if we didn't have that front loaded for us. So that's why we're paying that back. We never paid that back up until this point. So funds were still sitting, whatever funding we were planning to use out of our internal accounts, out of our checking account. We now have an opportunity not to use them and utilize, to your point, those budgeted funds that would go away if we didn't rush and buy a bunch of things that may or may not have really been impactful just to spend the money. So I hope that answered your question.
It does. And then what we're doing today is we're going to move those funds that CPS allocated in the 115 and move it over to our internal accounts. Is that correct?
No, what they're going to do is sweep, and it's more than 115 money. I'm glad you mentioned that. So it's our SBB, which is the 115 money, but it's also our also our 115 supplemental funding. So it's also 115 with a different grant number. And I don't want to get too technical, but it's the SBB, the supplemental, and also some of our NFT money, our 370 money that we are granted. There was a portion of the SRO money, again, that's on this docket, this proposal, I'm sorry, because we sort of fulfilled everything we needed to with some of the SRO monies. That would have gone away as well. So all of these pieces of the puzzle will make us whole if we elect to go forward with this.
And then this is to replace the revenue that we lost during the pandemic for not renting out the facilities. Is that right?
Correct. Essentially, we really didn't do much at all with rentals this fiscal year, which again didn't stop us from doing things that were student related. Students had everything they needed, but it put us in a compromising position, a tough position from a personnel standpoint.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Burney.
Thank you.
This is slightly unrelated. It's more of a logistical thing. Just a reminder, I know it's been a while since a lot of us were in hybrid, but when you finish speaking, if you don't mute yourself, it sometimes creates an echo when there are two people talking. So that's not like a comment at anyone, just like something that I also need to remind myself of. We all have to mute when we're not talking.
Mr. Burney, if you could answer one question for me, and this is kind of a leading question maybe for something else, but there is a $29,000 in operational supports funds. And you're suggesting we use $25,000. Can you talk about what that is?
Certainly. So at the beginning of the year, all schools receive additional funding for operational supports. And most schools received not only the funding, but a position or two, depending on what your needs were. And the idea behind it was PPE, things that you needed at the beginning of the year. Everyone was, this is the first time we were coming back. Temperature, someone to take temperature checks. Just the various things we could hire people for, spend money on to make sure that people were safe. Initially, that's what it was about. So that's where the funding came from. We have utilized some of it. We could utilize, and some of the funds can also be used for buckets and everything else. And I'm glad you brought that up. The reason why we're not using all of it, because we are funding a bucket for after school activities. And we'll probably need a little small piece of it to maintain that for the rest of the school year. So I didn't want to use all of it, to make sure that we had some portion of that funding left over in order to pay people for their duties that they've been performing all year. Hope that answers your question, Sarah.
It did. Thank you. And then I just had two comments, and then which was one regarding the SRO funds. If you recall, we got 130,000, and CPS ended up funding our 10th security guard and not taking it out of that fund. So that I would consider to be a cushion. That is, this is a perfect use for that money. And then it's not so much that we're replacing the rental money. It's just, when we were presented the budget last spring, we were told there was a surplus, and we knew there wouldn't be, we weren't sure if we'd have any rental income. So there is money in the general fee fund. We just don't want to spend all of our own money on this, if we have money that will be swept away on June 30th. So that will keep that money in there. And we have, as we know, as we're talking about going into that budget, there's a lot of needs that the school has: textbooks, software, computer labs, etc. So just something to keep in mind. And if there's no more questions, I'll make a motion. Okay. Good. Okay, let me find my motion. I make a motion to make the budget transfers from 115 and 370 funds as detailed on the slide to cover personal expenses per our CPS invoice, which I have linked. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I do a roll call. Andrade?
Yes.
Bowman?
Yes.
Clancy?
Yes.
Cresswell?
Yes.
Hilbrands?
Yay.
Kerr?
Yes.
Land?
Yes.
Ma, yes. Menjivar?
Yes.
Powers?
Yes.
Okay. Zen?
Yes.
I'm not going to use this again.
Give him a better button. Okay. All right. That was approved. And Mr. Bernier, if you have to go, appreciate you staying. Thank you. I don't have any fundraisers or facility usage. So I turn it back to you, Cassie.
Okay. The next thing we'll do is filling the parent vacancy. So I don't believe that we heard from Lainey and Aaron last time. So if you guys could speak now, and then if we have any questions, and then we'll go into closed session. So.
Do they give public comments and then we discuss in a closed meeting, or do they give the comments in a closed meeting?
We just ask them questions in the open meeting, and then we go into the closed session to discuss, and then we come out to vote.
Got it. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Lainey Weinstein. I'm a parent of a senior and a sophomore at Jones. Too loud? I don't know.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah, it sounded fine.
Oh,
Yeah, that's fine.
no, I didn't know if I was too loud. Sorry. My name is Lainey Weinstein still, and I am the parent of a senior and a sophomore at Jones. I'm submitting my candidacy for the vacant parent representative position. I have multiple years of LSC experience here at Jones as both a community and a parent representative. In addition to my previous LSC experiences, I'm a volunteer with the Friends of Jones, and I help spearhead the parent and teacher hospitality events this year. Thank you, Daniel and Will, for volunteering. And the open house for prospective students last fall. My professional background includes nonprofit, marketing, communications, and fundraising. I currently work with nonprofit and faith-based organizations for funding and communications projects. I'm currently the co-chair for our Family Synagogue's $5 million capital campaign, of which we are meeting and exceeding our goals there. Our family, we are 20+ year residents of the South Loop, and we have a strong interest and concern to support quality education options in our community. I've previously supported Old St. Mary's School as part of their strategic task teams, working on their financial vitality committee and serving in multiple roles, such as a gala chair and for their social justice programming. All of that aside, I believe that the only qualification needed to be on the LSC is that one is a parent of a student at the school and a willingness to, as the bylaws state, be guided by a student's first approach. The focus shall always be, first and foremost, what is best for the students. Those are two qualifications that I believe I do have. This is the third time that I have applied to fill a vacant position under this LSC's tenure, and my hope was to join the LSC to support our students, staff, and families, especially as we close out the 21 and 22 school year, to ensure Jones is in a strong position going into 22 and 23. Given the parent leadership of this LSC and the way that I feel that they have either enforced or disregarded process and procedures, I was not surprised by the way it played out to delay and defer the vote to fill this position at the last LSC meetings. I was disappointed, although again, not surprised, that they ignored their own deadlines and accepted another application after the deadline had passed. And Erin, as I said, this is absolutely no reflection on you. You are a parent, you are qualified. But I think that, you know, I have realized, and I think that they did that after realizing that I was only the candidate that was running for the position. I believe Cassie said that there were no qualified candidates. I dispute that. So I do want to be on the record that I felt that this manipulation of filling of this seat was just another example of the unbecoming conduct that the parent representatives of this LSC have exhibited time and time again. And that while you all may have used your positions, in my personal opinion, to tear down the Jones community, there are many others that are willing to step up, step in, and build this community up, myself included. Thank you.
Thanks, Lainey. Erin, go ahead.
Great. Well, thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. I'm the father of a sophomore here at Jones. We also have a sixth grader who was certainly considering her options to come to Jones. We love the school. So far has been generally a great experience. But I put my name up for consideration for this position as I've watched the events of the past few months unfold. It felt like the right time. I don't come in with any LSC experience, and I don't come in with any sort of agenda. But what I do hope to be able to share over what is going to be a relatively short period of time is my experience. My professional career, I advise struggling companies. We try to help rehabilitate them. We try to help save jobs and manage finances in a stretch where they're stretched, where they're running out of money. Stakeholders in that environment are almost always at cross purposes, and most of your interactions are contentious. But we work through them, and we find solutions that can bring everybody into consensus and provide a constructive way forward. Which I think could be applied into the current setting over, again, given the events of the past several months. I'm generally of the view that most situations are better viewed from a both and perspective rather than an either or perspective. A school can be both a top performing school and be able to meet the needs of some of its students. You know, our child can have both an amazing experience at Jones and encounter some of the difficulties and some of the challenges that I think have raised the temperature between the LSC and the administration. The school can both provide a great education, but also have room for improvement. So what I hope to do, and I don't pretend it's a short window now, right? I mean, I don't want to pretend like we're going to, either of us could come in and transform this process over the next, this time next week, there'll be an entirely new group who will be gearing up to take the seats in July. So I don't want to pretend like it, but it felt important to me at this juncture, step forward and try to offer what I can to help the community over the course of the next 2 months. So that's my.
Thanks to both of you. Council members, do you have questions or I guess just questions really? Sarah?
I just wanted to make a clarification. You know, when I was writing the minutes for the March 15th meeting, there was no deadline decided by the council. It was the deadline I posted on social media, I just kind of put out there. So I realize that's doesn't change what happened. And I know that Lainey feels that she was marginalized and I can't take that back, but I just wanted to say for the record that the minutes did not include a deadline. And I just wanted everyone to be aware of that. And also just for clarification, any member will need 8 votes. That's our majority. Or any new parent representative that's appointed will need 8 votes. Thank you.
Rachel?
I have a question for both candidates, not specifically for the Jones LSC, but just local school councils in general. What is one benefit you think LSCs bring CPS, and what is one drawback that councils as a body bring to the school district?
On the benefit side, I'd say they bring a venue for the types of discussion that we've been having, where issues can be raised from the community, from the students, from the faculty, and can sort of bring that into sort of a more public discussion. Negative, a little bit harder to come up with. I suppose at times that process can be become overly confrontational and end up not necessarily end up contributing to the problems more than they necessarily solve them. Do you want?
I think I can.
Okay.
I can project. I think one of the positives that the LSC can do is it actually can bring together lots of different voices. And when people are willing to work together and find compromise, they're able to uplift the entire community. I guess I would agree with Aaron, negative of the LSC. This doesn't happen at Jones, but there are LSCs at CPS that don't get enough people ever engaged or involved. So I think a lack of interest could be a negative that could happen at an LSC. My time at Jones, that has never been an issue.
Thank you both.
Answer your questions?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you.
Roberto?
So this is for both candidates, but I'm going to use something that Ms. Weinstein said in her remarks, that you've been, one of the things, disappointed with this LSC, that we have attempted to dismantle the school. I'm sorry, I'm paraphrasing, and if I've mischaracterized it, I apologize. Or that we're trying to tear down the school. I think that's the word that you used. And I want to use something that Mr. Rapinski asked. Do either of you believe that this LSC has done nothing right? And if so, why do you believe that? My second question is, have we done something to improve the school or to address or to surface issues? And what are those things that we have done right? And how would you, as prospective candidates, be able to manage those two things?
That was a lot of different questions. I think, unfortunately, I think Aaron said it right. You know, there's only 2 months left. And within a week, within 5 days, this will be a bit of a lame duck LSC. So I don't know that there is anything that we can truly do to impact the next 2 months. things that I do think are right is leveraging and raising the issues of equity. I do not agree with the way that you have used equity in what I feel to be a negative manner to bring things down versus to build people up. I think that exactly the conversation that happened with Ms. Hett today, that was an example of where equity intent and the impact was destructive and actually tore this community down. So the things that unfortunately at this point, I don't know how much of an impact we could have. This should have been 2 meetings ago or a meeting ago, I'm not, several months ago. So, what I would like to see is people coming together to be able to move things forward and using equity, using our budgets, supporting our teachers and our administration and our students in ways that are going to be positive and build up the community.
Yeah. So actually, Roberta, I think you hit on it earlier in this meeting, some of the positives that have come out of this past 2 years. And I do think that the equity issues that you've surfaced and some of the transparency issues that you've surfaced, you mentioned dress code, are all have been constructive. I think I take a slightly different take in terms of your characterization of how the equity point has been leveraged. I think I am generally supportive of a lot of the initiatives that this LSC has taken to sort of promote that. I guess lastly, and while my daughter is on the track team also, and she was, while the events of the February meeting may not have gone the way people thought they would, or in a way that became potentially difficult in terms of privacy of one particular student. I think what was lost in the earlier discussion is that the school lost an important member of its community as the track coach, and that affected 50 student athletes, right? So the issue is bigger than the one student who unfortunately, and she's a fantastic individual, but she unfortunately got sort of caught up in sort of a larger point. But what I don't want is to be lost is that the loss of the track coach did affect and took away an important pillar of this community for a lot of student athletes. And I think in some of the noise, that fact has sort of been lost. So not to return our conversation to that point, but I do think it's important to emphasize that. So anyway, I don't know if we've answered your question at all, Roberto. But
And let's take like one more from Will, unless someone that is desperate to ask something else.
Right now, I would say personally, I think the LSC meetings are a little bit inaccessible. They're quite long, which is not great for students or teachers, people who have to typically be in school the next day. But I would also say that sometimes, as we've discussed earlier in this meeting, the LSC fails to create a safe space for students, and I've been both on the receiving and participating end in that. And I would like to know how you two plan to make meetings more accessible and make them safer for student participation, because I do think that students have a vital role to play in this council.
Well, in terms of the safe space for students, I mean, I think there have been over the course of the past several meetings a few discussions on that point, and I do think sort of encouraging and the participation of more students and not necessarily, and giving them more, maybe more talking time and more ability to sort of express views is important. I think in some ways, while it's important to have sort of to run a tight meeting, I mean, you want to allow, especially the students, to have a voice. And if they feel intimidated by a running clock on the screen, frankly, I think that's a little challenging for a student in a way that it shouldn't be for a parent. So I think you could separate that process somewhat. In terms of shortening the meetings, yeah, there's a lot to cover. I don't have a great answer for you on that one. I wish, there's a lot of different perspectives and a lot of information that we're sort of delving into. So I unfortunately don't have a great answer for you on that one.
I mean, I think one of the things that, from an accessibility point of view, is I think Mr. Burney just shared that there is a budget. And I do think that there should be technological accessibility that allows families and students to be able to participate in this. No offense to Troy, but like, have somebody that can, make sure that this is not, that we've got better resources. I think there could be a call-in number. There could be other things that could help support from an accessibility point of view. From a space safe for you all as students, one of the things that I think I have not seen a lot of is actually really listening to what the students are saying. And if there was wrongs done or if there was positives done, seems to have been glossed, a little bit lost and glossed, I guess I would say. And I think that active listening and active response is something that would be helpful. Does that answer? Does that help?
Thank you both so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, I think what we can do is take a little break, get the closed session link to everyone online, and then for now, the non-council members can just exit and come back when we're back on. Council members, if you need like a 2-minute break or something, you can like run and do that. Yeah, so, and in the meantime, Troy will get a link and put it, we'll get the link for everyone online.
You need to make a
Okay,
motion.
great.
You need to make a
Okay,
motion to
so
go
yeah,
into.
so we will reconvene for those of you online.
Stop.
At
Cassie.
7:52.
No, Cassie.
What?
Oh, we're taking a break and then we're going to make a motion to go to close?
Yeah, we'll do the.
Oh, break
yeah.
and then a motion.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And then we'll go to the new
And then
meet.
we'll go
Just
into
don't
closed.
drop out of this meet because we have to make a motion to go to closed. So break first. Thank you.
Yeah, let's do the break and then we'll do the motion and yeah.
Mr. Lopez.
I'm glad people think he's awesome.
So
I think he's
just
so
waiting
cool.
for Troy here, you guys.
As close to, I
Okay, Sarah, you good on the stream?
I'm great. Whenever you're ready, I have to take roll that we're back, and then I can go to closed.
Laura,
Troy, can you unmute Sarah?
Pablo and talk to Gabrielle.
I need a little hammer.
Hello, Gabby.
Okay, I'm gonna call everyone back to order. Cutting you off. So first we're gonna be in this open session to stream to vote to go to closed.
I also, you know, I hate to say this, but I need to take
I think
roll.
it's okay. You guys could be in the same one.
Oh, wait, I didn't realize.
Cassie,
Yes.
I need to take a roll call that you guys are all back from break.
No, we're just gonna we're still in open session. So let's take a roll now. Okay, everyone ready?
Okay, so I'm going to take roll. We're going to go into close. I'm going to take roll again. So say here if you're here. Andrade.
Can everyone actually hear Sarah here? Yeah. Can you make Sarah a little louder, Troy?
Sorry. Oh, you guys moved? Anyway.
No, you're just always quiet compared to everyone else. Go ahead.
Andrade.
Present.
Bowman.
Here.
Clancy.
Present.
Crestwell.
Here.
Hilbrands.
Here.
Kerr,
present.
Land. Deborah.
I'm here.
Ma here. Menjivar. Did he go?
No, he's just muted. He is present.
Powers. I see him and Rachel.
Here.
Okay. And then if you're ready, I'll make a motion to move to closed session.
I'll second that.
Okay. Roll call. Andrade.
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
Clancy.
Yes.
Presswell.
Yes.
Hilbrands.
Yes.
Kerr.
Yes.
Land.
Yes.
Ma, yes. Menjivar.
Yes?
Powers. I see him and Zen. Great.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to move to close so you can hang up this meet and I'll see you on the other meet.
I'm joining something.
I'm ready when you're ready.
Can I get time to explain my vote when it comes time?
Yes. Okay, I will call. Okay, so I will call us back to order. It's a little Star Trek here, you guys. At 8:37, and then Sarah, you can do the roll. I think maybe it won't echo.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. Andrade,
Present.
Bowman,
Present.
Clancy,
Present.
Cresswell,
Here.
Hilbrands,
Here.
Kerr,
Here.
Land,
Here.
Ma, here, Menjivar,
Present.
Zen.
Here.
Okay.
And I'm here too.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Please do that if I miss you.
Oops. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to. Okay, I'll make a motion to. Testing.
Hello.
Testing. Hello. Okay. I'll make a motion to appoint Laney to the empty peer representative position.
I'll second.
Okay, Kurt seconded. I'm gonna take a roll call. Can you hear me? Andrade,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Clancy.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. Are we voting to fill right now or voting to vote?
Yes, we're,
Oh.
we're voting to fill.
Okay, I am abstaining and I requested time to explain that. I am friends with Lainey's daughter, and I don't know if that would have influenced my decision, but I felt it best to avoid that question altogether, so I will abstain.
Excellent. Thank you. Cresswell.
No.
Hillbrands.
And just to clarify, this is for Lainey.
Yes.
Yes, I'm voting yes. Yes.
Thank you. Kerr.
Yes.
Land.
No.
Ma. No. Menjivar.
No.
Powers.
Yes.
Zen.
No.
Did I miss anybody? Okay, let me do a count. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses. Correct? Andrade, Bowman, Hillbrands, Kerr, Powers. 5 yeses. So that motion doesn't pass. Any other motions?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Aaron Taylor as parent representative for the Jones Local School Council.
Give a second.
I'd like to second that.
Sorry. Do a roll call. Andrade,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Clancy,
I'm going to abstain again.
okay, Cresswell,
Yes.
Hillbrands,
No.
Kerr,
Yes.
Land,
Yes.
Ma, no. Menjivar,
Yes.
Powers,
No.
Zen.
Yes.
Okay, let me count. 1, 2, Andrade, Bowman, Cresswell, Kerr, Land, Menjivar, Zen. 7, so not enough. So no one is appointed.
Oh crap! I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can explain what just happened.
We like neither motion passed. I mean, I suppose someone can make another motion if we don't want to close this item. Could revote on either of those motions. But so far, neither one's appointed. Neither one got 8 votes, and you need 8 votes for a motion to pass. I mean, it's up to we can put it on the agenda every month and try again and open, keep the candidacy open and have more people apply. And then if we don't want it on the agenda, we vote on the agenda at the beginning of the meeting. So, Will?
I motion to revote on both candidates with the new knowledge that neither received a majority last time, and just for all council members to consider that when voting again.
So you have to motion for one first to hold the vote first.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, that makes sense. I didn't think about that. I motion to vote to appoint Aaron to the local school council.
A second?
Sarah seconded?
No, I didn't.
Roberto
I said, do
seconds.
we have a second?
Oh, do we have a second? Okay.
Roberto.
Okay.
Roberto.
Okay, give me a second. Andrade,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Clancy,
Abstain?
Cresswell,
Yes.
Hillbrands,
Nay.
Kerr,
Yes.
Land,
Yes.
no, Menjivar,
Yes.
Powers,
No.
Zen.
Yes.
This vote is unchanged.
Yeah, I was actually just going to request that we put this on the next meeting and we continue to try to fill that position. I think it's very important that we have a full council, even if they're doing, I mean, we've got at least 4 meetings left, special meetings. I think it would be very prudent to have a full council. So if we could put this on the agenda for next month.
Okay, Will?
Just in the sake of fairness and considering both candidates, I motion to vote to appoint Lainey. Oh, you okay? Okay, never mind then.
Okay, so we'll put that on for May. We are planning a special meeting next week for Tuesday, the 26th. And if we have an extra session for that and we need to reconvene, it'll be on the 27th. That's for principal evaluation, which has to be completed by May 1st.
For speaking out of turn, but I think it's also important for the public to know those special meetings for the principal evaluations are in closed sessions. That is just the rule. They start in open and then you make a motion to go into closed session. So for council members to have a frank and fair conversation about the principal evaluation.
Okay, so I did not update the tracking of the equity needs this month. And then we will go on to reports. There's the link there to the principal's report. Anything to add on there, Dr. Powers?
Just very briefly, I mentioned one thing, and that's our status with, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I know.
Hey, it finally responded on the first try. I'm giving this back to you, Troy. I don't want to see it again.
Just to know, this is what they have to work with every day.
Yeah, well, life is difficult sometimes.
Right.
I think it probably is something you have to do with the connection there because I've got dropped 5 or 6 times. Anyway, just the most important thing to add on this is our enrollment status. We are still have a goal of a freshman enrollment of between 490 and 500 with a total enrollment of approximately 1,970, which is the amount that we are budgeted for next year. Principal discretion has been completed at our end and is it being processed by CPS and those announcements will be coming out. Our notifications will come out early in May. Selective enrollment, we are starting a round 2 to complete filling all projected selective enrollment seats. We're looking for an additional 50 or 60 students through that process. CTE, we've begun the process of calling students on the wait list to fill out the remaining seats for a total of 75 to 80. And we are not quite ready to start, or we will be starting the transfers, reviewing transfers. We probably can take between 15 and 20 students in grades 10 through 12. Most of those are going to be rising sophomores. So that's where we are at the moment, but our goals for enrollment remain the same.
All right, thanks. Any questions, comments here online? If not, is Mr. Mitchell there? See him logged in.
Yes, I'm here, Cassie.
Oh, there you are. Great. Go ahead. The next item is the Equity Initiative report.
Well, I mean, one of 2 things can happen. I can just update one component that's most prudent because the way I've been doing the reports over the last few months speaks to all 4 portions of our priorities. I can speak to that one, or I can just submit a written report for records so that I'm looking at the time for the meeting, for sake of a lot of questions and responses as it relates to the equity assessment and everything. So which do you all prefer?
I think the submitting the report would sounds great.
Okay. Then I can definitely do that. I will submit something in writing, speaking specifically to some next steps as it relates to the racial equity assessment. And yeah, the report will consist mostly about some of those things.
That would be good. We still have a fairly major budget vote coming up. So, well, on the internal accounts, like in May, we're going to vote on that.
Oh, yes.
And so we've told, especially teachers to put in requests and plans. And so I think, we really have not gotten CIWP updates besides very sporadically. And I think at a minimum, given what some of the priorities are in the CIWP, the racial equity assessment speaks to where the school is on those, some of those goals and priorities. And so any additional information that the council can have before those votes is very helpful. So yeah, and written report is fine. I think everyone, so thanks.
No problem. I can say very quickly that as of right now, some of the next steps that we have spoken to, I don't think are going to impact the budget one way or the other. Like there's nothing, no major, dollar amounts affixed to some of our proposed next steps.
Okay. Okay, the next is the student report. Students.
So our report is verbal this month because there wasn't that much. Just the first thing was the on-track rate. It was contingent upon the principal report. As you mentioned earlier, and it's in your report, it's 96.3 at the moment for both grades, 9 and 10, and that's only what's available. We were just wondering, like, what steps are being taken to kind of increase that, because while it is really high, it's not 100 as we want it to be. And so just like what steps are being taken to bring that up, because I know the transition from online has been hard, especially for these younger grades. So what's being done?
Okay, am I on? Thank you. A very good question. And again, one of the things that we normally do see in the either at the times of the progress reports or at the quarters, in the first and the third quarter, is a somewhat lower on track rate, which then rises, I should say, for the end of the semester. However, this is approximately 2 to 2.5% lower than normally we have had. Normally it's been in the 98.5 or 99% range. So the MTSS activities that we are engaging in with our students in terms of helping students especially students who have earned D's and F's at any of the marking periods, the interventions of their individual teachers, the use of academic lab time, where students are actually being, told, please report to, Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so during academic lab. That is having effect so that at least the two grade levels, 9 and 10, are on par with each other at the moment. Previously, they've fluctuated somewhat, and we believe that with the interventions that we've had in place, especially this spring, but earlier as well, will enable the students to improve. Whether we will get to the 98 or 99 percentile range is a little difficult to know. Also, just as a reminder, we do have some changes in the nature of our student body. We've had a significant increase in the number of students with IEPs. This is by CPS policy and procedure. So the incoming freshman class, this year's freshman class, had almost 3 times as many students with IEPs as the previous freshman class. That will continue on. Also, for next year. And also the going to the second round in the selective enrollment process means that there will probably be a number of students who are coming in lower than the typical total scores. And that just happens with second round because most of the students who were close but did not get admitted have been accepted someplace else, have made their decisions, etc. So we go further down the list in terms of numerically in the order in which it goes. We don't do that ourselves. That's done through the algorithm of CPS. So that'll give you a little bit of an idea of some of the changes that are taking place and some of the things that we're doing to address those changes.
Thank you, Dr. Powers.
Thank you.
We only had like 2 really quick items. The other is like a little PSA for people. Obviously, seniors are getting ready for graduation, and we're all familiar with the terrible affliction known as senioritis. So we're just encouraging everyone to be mindful of that. Keep trying, keep working. You're almost there. If you saw in the principal report, there's a good outline of the calendar of senior events. We only have a little bit ways to go, so we're reminding teachers to be compassionate with some of our exhausted seniors, but also pushing students to, work hard just a little bit longer. And the last thing is just, we're getting ready for AP tests. Obviously, this is a very stressful time for a lot of people. So again, we're just reminding people to be compassionate with one another, especially when we're under a lot of stress for AP tests, which mean a lot to some people. Not everyone takes them, but yeah, that's pretty much it, unless there's anything you want to add.
Any questions for the students or comments?
Just one question.
Go ahead, Roberto.
Dr. Powers mentioned IEP, so if you can, for those who don't know, if you can explain what IEPs are, and that has, I just want to make sure we're using it in a very positive way, in a positive manner.
There's no question about it.
There, it's responded. No, I don't mean that in a negative way at all, Roberto. It just means that there are students who have individualized plans based on academic challenges that they have. Not all students are the same that have an IEP. Some students may have an IEP that really has not seriously affected them academically, but many do. And because of that, there are things that we need to be doing and are doing to provide greater interventions for them. We are, for example, going to be, we've actually already filed an appeal to increase the number of our resource teachers in the diverse learners program. And we were able to increase this year, which only made up for a loss of the previous year, unfortunately, budget loss. But by doing that, we'll have more opportunity for more of our diverse learners teachers to be in co-taught classes. And we're working on some other things that will structurally help support the growing number of students with IEPs, or percentage of students with IEPs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So PBLC report, Kim?
Yeah, I'll try to make it kind of quick. And also, PSA, senioritis is a real disease. I will vouch for that. Okay, so the PPLC met with members of the teaching staff on March 28th to discuss any concerns that the staff would like for us to bring to admin. We then met with Dr. Powers and Mr. Mitchell 2 days later on March 30th. The main topics of discussion were following up on the roles and responsibilities of the leadership team and main office staff and addressing concerns regarding communication that were brought to us by staff members. On March 17th, Dr. Powers shared a spreadsheet outlining the roles and responsibilities of the Jones leadership team and main office staff with the PPLC. We asked for clarification regarding who would be backup person if the main point of contact was unavailable, specifically for the 504 testing center. Dr. Powers acknowledged that backups for some specific tasks could be set up, but not every role needs a backup. He also emphasized that the leadership team is always available via email if they're not in the building, and that staff can expect email responses within 1 to 2 days. Dr. Powers did acknowledge the challenges around staffing the testing center, but no long-term solution has been proposed yet. The leadership team will also follow up with some specific questions regarding ISB professional development hours and the contact person for the nurse. We hope that this spreadsheet of roles and responsibilities will be shared out with the whole staff soon. Staff members asked the PPLC to bring up issues of reporting discriminatory incidents or other incidents that should be reported to the Office of Student Protections. Dr. Powers confirmed that the flyers we received in our mailboxes should be posted in our classrooms. That was the confusion as staff members. We got these flyers and we didn't know what to do with them. But we were informed that we needed to hang them in our classrooms, and that the hotline listed in the Eagle flight is a general CPS number, because what was on the poster and what was in the Eagle flight were the same, but they apparently have just 2 different numbers. We asked if students had gone through the mandatory Title, I think it's supposed to say Title 9 training. Maybe it's supposed to be Title 11 training. And Dr. Powers was unsure if this was something that had repeated this year. There were also a list of other communications. For the sake of breadth, I'm just going to say it's in the report listed at the bottom, all the other things that staff members had asked us to communicate for communications needs. And that's it. That's the PPLC report.
Thanks, Kim. Comments and questions? Sarah?
I can't, the tardy, I don't know where I read, is that in the PPLC report? I'm sorry. The tardies, like, somewhere, I don't remember where I read it, but like the first and fifth periods, the teachers were worried about so many tardies, and how, what could be done to encourage people to get to school on time. And when I told my daughter, she's like, we all take public transportation, woo, woo, woo. So just wondering what the school, like what historically have you done to get people to school on time, and how big of an issue really is it?
Dr. Powers?
It's a bigger issue than it was, I think, prior to the pandemic, but we do have your student is correct. Many students do not have much control over when they can get here. And as a result, they get here when the trains get here, and that can be a problem. So first thing in the morning, first period, fifth period, are chronic issues, but I don't think they're insurmountable through encouragement and especially trying to get, for example, some students can't start 5 minutes or 10 minutes earlier because they don't have a train that starts 5 or 10 minutes earlier. Whenever we do have difficulties on especially the red line is our major feeder coming in, we always let the teachers know that there has been a delay. They give the students a certain amount of grace, and those are the largest numbers. Where we have had additional issues, however, and that has grown this school year, where previously, prior to the pandemic, it was not an issue at all. It's tardiness between classes, and that has become a greater difficulty. So we're exploring ways that we can. I think part of it, of course, is coming out of the pandemic. It's the idea that, previously all I had to do was log in, I'm here, and whether I was, actually mentally present or not, or even physically present, was moot. But in this particular situation, if the student isn't in the classroom, all the teachers can do is to try to have as much carrot as we can provide with bell ringer activities and so forth. There also needs to be, for want of a better term, a little bit of a stick to move people on. And I think more of a reminder than anything else. It's going to be hard to break a pattern that has developed during the school year, but for the start of the new school year, it's going to be another thing entirely. And that could very well lead to additional use of restorative practices where parents are involved, and I think some conversations will take care of most of those class-to-class tardiness issues.
Thanks. Anyone else? If not, thanks, Kim. Oh, Will, go ahead.
So
Oh,
just with
Alex.
class tardiness, something, I don't know, I've been thinking about a lot is when you're going from one building to the other building, and how there's like one walkway and it takes usually like 5 minutes to get through that passage, and it's like clogged traffic jams, as well as sometimes, I don't know, for me, it's hard to get to, like, I have a class on the 6th floor of this building, and then I go to the 5th floor of the other building for my next class. So that's 11 floors that I have to walk. right? And that's like, I have to walk 11
Yeah.
floors in between that class and then also take 5 minutes to walk in between the buildings. Sometimes it's just kind of impossible to get somewhere on time. So I don't know, even I don't think it would be possible to lengthen passing periods. Obviously that wouldn't work, but I think that could be part of the reason why lots of people are late.
Although I will say, that's been the situations for the last 4 or 5 years that we've had the full enrollment that we have with the 2 buildings, and it did not impede most students. What we're seeing is students dawdling in the hallways. In other words, the bell rings and, the teacher's saying, come on, come on, come on, and 5 or 6 students are taking their time. So it's not the students making the trip. It's the students who get to where they're going and then don't go the rest of the way. And I think that can be handled.
Kim?
A couple of things. One, I was just going to echo what Dr. Price. My classroom is on 5022, so South Building, 5th floor, and I am right in the foyer. Like there are just like millions of kids in front of my classroom, so I see like a lot more. And it is like the late bell rings, and I'm at my door, and I'm like fussing at kids who are just standing there because they've just like hung out on the 5th floor. So I think there is some need, and we have had some staff requests and ideas brought to us about maybe in the past, what we were able to do is have teacher by teacher policies. And maybe this is something that needs to become a school-wide policy with consequences or whatever that looks like, and something that we need to look at for the future of like different teachers enforce different ways, and without taking away like their ability to choose, but maybe having clear school-wide policies is something that's been asked of us from the PPLC. So just something to keep in mind. And then as far as roles and responsibilities, I did want to reply to Sarah. I'm not sure if it's been shared to PPLC, but I'm not sure if it was disseminated whole staff or just to department chairs, but I'm sure Dr. Fires could probably answer that question too.
I thought that was shared with the whole faculty. If not, we'll go back and do it again, but I believe I sent it out to everybody.
And Will or Alex?
Just to echo what Ms. Bowman and Dr. Powers have said, I'm obviously not a teacher. I'm a teacher's assistant, and I would say that also in my perspective, again, I'm not a teacher, but I definitely do have some students who show up to class late, like consistently, and it's not because they are stuck in the hallways, it's because they just choose to do so, which is obviously something that my teacher is working on, and that we're trying to incentivize students to come. But like, that definitely is a very real issue that I have seen firsthand. So I think some school-wide policies might be beneficial, and especially making it clear to students what those policies are as sort of a form of, I think that's a very effective form of incentivizing, is making clear what the consequences are, sort of like through a PA announcement or something like that.
Okay, thanks all on that. Next, Friends of Jones, is it Raquel? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
There she is.
Okay, so I'm Raquel Don. I'm a parent, and I'm with Friends of Jones, and I'm given the report from Friends of Jones. So Friends of Jones and the local school council are in the process of a follow-up mediation meeting with the Office of Local School Council Relations, pending the open answers to the questions that we had in our last meeting with them. We hosted a successful fundraiser, which is just a social event at Roots last month. I'm not going to go through all the grants, but we did several grants at our March meeting. Tomorrow is the class of 2022 panoramic photo. We got volunteers to help school bring the students safely to the park and back. And we are also providing it's supposed to be a surprise, but food trucks for the students to encourage them to return back to school after the field trip. And just like Shabada was saying earlier, we are extending the ticket sales to our spring benefit until tomorrow. So if you haven't purchased your ticket yet, you may do so by going to biddingforgood.com/Friends of Jones. And we will have activities later this month on the 29th for a senior decision day. And the next Friends of Jones board meeting is May 12th. And that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
William, Alex?
This is just kind of a real quick comment. I know it's supposed to be a surprise, but you might consider, and I didn't hear any of this, but you might consider, Friends of Jones should communicate with admin, you might consider announcing it, because I do know that there are some students who think that a field trip is an excuse to ditch after the field trip.
Yeah.
So just maybe that reminder, like maybe in the day, so it's still like a surprise, but you know, might help us retain some students and come back to school, which is obviously like a security issue for the school.
Yes,
So, yeah.
And then also really quickly, you're considering food allergies, right? Food trucks. Okay, good. Yeah.
I'm assuming Michelle Kerr answered the
Yeah,
question.
Michelle answered that, and yes.
Okay.
Food allergies are considered.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Raquel.
I have,
Wait, Deborah.
Yes.
one more food allergy comment. It would be helpful to the families with children with food allergies to announce what is available to them in advance, because I have a child with food allergies who cannot comfortably make those decisions on the fly without heads up, and access to menus and access to information about where this food comes from is a huge part of the decision-making process for food allergies. So if you could do that, that would be very.
Thank you for your comment, Deborah. That is very important. Anything else? I don't think so. Thank you, everybody.
I get it. Sources of food, where to all that.
Okay, committee reports, budget.
Yeah, let me talk about a few things real quick, promise. So just as we prepare, I'm going to go to the last slide. Okay. Thank you for approving those other funds. That will allow the transfer, those budget transfers, that will allow Mr. Burney to really get to work on what is available in internal accounts now that we know that for this year, and then we can do a projection for next year based on information. We'll be able to present to you this, a budget, which will include the technology plan. Sandeep has been working with Ms. Troche and Ms. Lalagan very closely. We're going to show how fees are distributed, explain how activity accounts are utilized versus departmental accounts. Mr. Burney and I had 2 meetings last week. We're going to review athletic fees and sports team fees. We're going to outline departmental versus school purchases as best as we can. And we're right now currently working with PPLC to gather information on software, textbook, other expected purchases. I know that Mr. Burney is also working closely with Friends of Jones, to make sure that they know expectations for fiscal year 23. And then, there is one remaining position that's an operations manager that is to be funded for 124 funds, and making sure that we show that we can pay for that, so we don't have to do what we just did right now. And then, if that happens where we get to use 115 funds to pay for that position or something later, but at least we have this in the budget. And one thing I wanted to talk about real quickly, so that's what we'll present hopefully at the beginning of at the May meeting, and we'll provide it to you in advance. But I just want to talk a little bit about MFT funds, and I know a lot of schools have had a lot of difficulty spending this fund. This, I don't even know if you can see it, but in my form, and the reason I'm bringing this up is I got some texts during the meeting about this slide. And they were texts saying, we didn't spend the money like this. And I said, I know we didn't spend the meeting like this or the money like this, but the money was supposed to be spent not just for SAT prep, but for targeted SEL instruction, MTSS, stipend for EOS team to meet, like these things, and then the school counseling plan. Though that that didn't happen with this money. I can't speak to whether or not it happened with other money. I didn't see any approvals come through, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen with other money. But I just wanted you to be aware, specifically because I received some, questions about, hey, we didn't spend that money like that. And I just wanted to address that. And I think that's the end of my report.
Thanks, Sarah. Questions and comments for Sarah? The budget meeting that is coming up is on the 2nd, Monday, May 2nd. Roberto?
And so two things that I just want to emphasize here. I really do want the budget committee, Dr. Powers and his team, to really take a look at that technology fee and whether $100 is appropriate, especially, given the technological issues that we're having with these Chromebooks right now. So I think it's important. I agree that there should be a fee to hold students accountable, to respect the school's supplies and resources, but I just don't know, at least I don't feel $100 is justifiable, especially these Chromebooks are $300 or $400. So I would really like the budget committee to really take a look at that and determine whether we can lower the fees on that. And then as far as the academic approach, I mentioned this at the last meeting. I think students, at least the students that and their families who I've talked to, have really appreciated that the school offered that academic approach for the juniors, especially the juniors feeling the impact of the 2-year pandemic, missing out on the PSAT in their 10th grade, I think, and then having taking their PSATs, the 11th grade, and then their SATs in the same year. And so I want to be able to extend that to the sophomores rising juniors. And I hope that we can provide them with the same level of SAT prep that we did for the juniors. And I reached out to the academic approach, and it seemed like it was really successful. 361 students registered and took part in the class. 167 students chose the in-person option. 190 and then attendance was, I believe attendance was hovering above 60% or around 68%, something like around that percent. We offered both virtual and in-person Monday through Saturday, which I think was beneficial to a lot of families. So I think it would be helpful for the school to really consider having that program back for at least another year.
Sarah?
Yeah, it's expensive. So, but yeah, it's point taken. And then with respect to the technology fee, what you kind of just addressed, we definitely have been talking about that, but we have a lot of technological needs in the building that are independent of Chromebooks that are overdue for replacement. So I really think we need to focus on replacing those, and we will look at the fee, but I just wanted to kind of be totally transparent that there's a lot of tech in the building that needs to be replaced. So, well, it's all, like Mr. Burney will always say, it's always about, prioritizing choices.
Roberto, you have a quick comment? Oh, okay. And Dr. Powers.
Yes, that's a good point with regard to the SAT prep. Right now, we're working on, because of the significant cost and some of the logistical issues that we experienced with academic approach. I think it was very effective, very successful. But we're also looking at some in-house approaches to it, integrating more into curriculum, especially in math and in English. We want to see where that goes. and the resources that we can use inside the building that may be more cost effective and maybe more organic to the curriculum, I guess you might say. So we're still working in that area as well. We've got some good proposals on the table.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Roberta, do you have anything for equity committee?
There are no updates from the equity committee. We had anticipated having a meeting this Thursday, but this Thursday is parent teacher conference. So I'm hoping we can have it next Thursday. So, but that's it.
Thanks. And health and safety. Lenny is not here tonight. I think she put a folder together, and that committee is watchable. I don't know if she wrote something up for it. Probably not. Deborah was also there. Any highlights you want to bring up, Deborah?
The group didn't have quorum last night, so we had a discussion, but there was nothing in particular to vote on, which was fortunate. And what we did was we talked about the COVID protocols. Ms. Lalagan gave a really thorough update. I really appreciate how she takes all this complex scientific information and boils it down into something that's understandable. Rachel was there too. And we also talked about accessibility in the building. Jones is classified by CPS as an accessible building, but we have a couple sore spots in our building that are not easily accessible to students, particularly with mobility issues. We talked about the area where the student lounge is proposed outside of the North Auditorium, between the North Auditorium and the Link. The only way a student with mobility issues can get to that area right now is with a key to the service elevator. And if they don't have a key, it's not accessible. And so if you want to make that space a student meeting place where students can informally meet, you have to make it easy for them to get there. And all students should have the ability to freely go anywhere in the building. The second thing, and I did finally, after our meeting ended last night, I got a note from a parent. We've been talking about elevator capacity. There's been outages with elevators in the South Building and in the North Building. And we also have an issue with students who are not authorized to ride the elevators, hopping in the elevators, which delays access for those students who have to use the elevator. I mean, I have a Jones student with mobility issues. She cannot climb 6 flights of stairs. It cannot happen. And those kids end up late to class when they have to wait 2 or 3 times because the elevator that comes to the floor they're on is already full. And so a request from parents of students with mobility issues or other medical issues that require them to use the elevator, can we please do some kind of student-facing PSA, reminding people that it's a courtesy to the people who need to use the elevator, not to take up the space. And also from the administration, same kind of message. Can we put a note in the Eagle updates? Just a reminder, because it's convenient, it's easy. As Alexandra stated, it's hard to go down 6 flights of stairs across campus and up 5 flights of stairs. We get that that's hard, but there are kids who physically cannot do this. And it's really important that we make sure that those students really have the priority in those spaces. The other, I sent Dr. Plunkett, because she's a member of the Health and Safety Committee, I sent her a list of questions about the elevator maintenance and do we need to plan for some preventative maintenance over the summer so that we can have fewer outages? Have we looked at the capacity with students that have mobility issues and the number of elevators do we have? Are we at the right capacity in terms of getting kids up and down the floors? There's a whole list of questions, and she said that she would get back to me in a few days. Maybe you can help her sort through some of those. For the kids with mobility issues, it can be a huge problem. And for the general Jones community, these kids are invisible. We had that conversation last night at the meeting that people people don't necessarily think about the fact that we have pockets in our building that are not easily accessible, or that we have elevators that don't work. And so bringing some light to this is going to be very helpful, because I know my daughter's not the only one. There's a bunch of kids who need those elevators.
Yeah, just following up on that, we do have one of the elevators out in the north building, and it has been out for some time. There's a motor that has to be installed, and that's all going through the CPS capital improvement process. So we're a little out of pocket on that. We definitely are. So one of those is not functioning. In the south building, we have 3 elevators that are used for students and faculty, and there's one elevator that is not in general use because it's a freight elevator. So once we have the elevator in place, functioning again, both of them in the north building, and we take care of some of this abuse of the use of the elevators by students who do not need them, going between floors and so forth, or even if they're going from the bottom to the top, it doesn't really matter. If they don't have an elevator pass, they shouldn't be on the elevator. So that's something that has grown as a problem, and it needs to be dealt with. So we will be dealing with that. And I'm hoping to have that second elevator completed, or the repairs on it completed sometime this spring. We're waiting on the repairs to be done.
William and Alex.
This is a question for either Deborah or Dr. Powers. Is there some steps that you guys are thinking of taking in order to reduce and prevent the abuse of elevators by students who don't need them?
From my perspective, yes. We're going to start continuing to work with our security team, but again, they're spread pretty thinly during the course of the day. And we have, in the past, we have urged faculty members, if they're on the elevator or they realize somebody's there who's, ask students to show us your elevator passes, so it's legitimate, because there's only about, what do we have, 100 and, do you have a figure on that, Troy? Kids with elevator passes. It's hardly more than 100.
No, actually, Joe, it's about 150.
Mr. Mitchell just chimed in. He said it's about 150.
150? Okay.
Yes.
That sounds like a reasonable figure, which is smaller than 10%. And again, that's some of those students are not using it to go like from one floor to one floor, like one floor difference. So yes, we're going to continue working on that. And I think the idea of having, making this much more of a direct explanation to the students is great, but it has to be enforceable. And by basically what we were doing earlier on was, if a student did not have an elevator pass, we asked the faculty member or staff member to take a picture of their ID, and the ID was sent down to the office, and then we talked to the student at that point and reported the student to their parents.
Roberto?
So you said this, was it the south elevator that's not working properly and that has to go through CPS? On the north side. I'm wondering if it would help if the LSC, do you think it would help for the LSC to draft a letter and help get them moving on this and express how this is a big concern for us?
No, we've been doing that. It's a matter of the motor. It's like the whole supply chain issue. It's not like we can go to Elevators R Us and buy an elevator motor. It has to be a specific thing, and it has to be ordered. And it's been ordered on, and I don't know, 6 months, at least 6 months, something like that. So it's just a matter of it getting here, and once it's here, getting it installed, all through a contracting service. Yeah. I wish it were as simple as that. Yeah. I wish it were.
Rachel?
Yeah, my comment is like separate from this discussion, so I'm happy to hold it.
Okay, Daniel?
I just want to apologize for not being here yesterday at this appointment and stuff like that. But I think you do bring a good point of pockets that are inaccessible, especially with the Eagle Zone that's being proposed. Do you have any ideas at the moment on how that space can become more accessible? Because like Deborah pointed out, I think it's that one elevator near the cafeteria, right? That is
Back in behind,
behind there too.
there's a lift at the cafeteria and then you go back behind, it's a service elevator that requires a key to use it.
Okay, yeah. Do you have
But
any,
that's something that can be dealt with. And it's primarily a service elevator simply because it's not in general use and it only goes one floor. So that's why it's used primarily for that purpose. But it is accessible, and it's just a matter of making sure that the student has access to it.
Do we need it to be keyed?
Well, I can check into that and find. I don't know what the status of the key on that is.
Because it would be great if it did not require a key, then it makes it easier,
Okay.
you know?
I can look into that.
Because for a kid who's if they're trying to use a device.
Right.
With
Mhm.
holding their books or their supplies or whatever, one more thing to do with
Yeah.
their hand. If there's no need to have it keyed,
The primary reason it was keyed was so that it was used only for, business purposes, I guess you might say. But we can look into that and see how it works, how it would work.
Troy?
I think what you've brought up is a lot of great points. The elevator has been a long time issue since the day we opened, as far as like students getting on that shouldn't belong on the elevator. We did do a campaign probably about a month ago where on the daily announcements, that's every B day, the teacher that would make the announcements would remind students that if you don't have an elevator pass, you are basically taking it away from someone that does need it. I think that's definitely something we could start immediately. And, we could definitely look at exploring different options for maybe even getting a lift of some sort. A lot of those bigger projects, though, are capital projects that involve CPS. So, and then to your point about the elevator in the far back, the reason why it's keyed is that it's double entrance, so it goes down to the basement, and we don't really not want students to have access to that. So and now we could possibly look into getting it keyed so that it's operational all the time and only keyed when you want to go down to those sections. That's definitely something we can easily look into. And I'd be happy to talk to our engineer about that too.
And William and Alexandra?
I do think education for the general student body will make a pretty big difference. I think most of the people who choose to take the elevator, not because they need to, but because they don't want to walk up all the stairs, aren't really thinking about it in those layers and fully in depth as to who they could be taking the elevator away from. So I think if we lay out those concerns to students, they'll be a lot less inclined to take the elevator. And then, I don't know, this kind of in my mind opened up a question about keys and accessibility for things. And it's not, this doesn't have to do with mobility issues as much, but something I was thinking about in relation to that is the gender neutral bathrooms and how they all require keys. And I know I have a lot of friends who felt uncomfortable asking for a key because then they have to express their status as a non-binary person to the admin or to whoever they'd have to ask, and that's not something people are comfortable to do because not everyone is out and not everyone wants to have to go and be like, hey, I'm non-binary, I'm gender non-conforming, please give me a key. So I don't know if that's a discussion we could have at a later date or at some point about, I don't know, accessibility for groups who are I guess experiencing a disenfranchisement.
Rachel?
Yeah, the Health and Safety Committee has talked about a policy for the student handbook that would kind of explicitly outline the approach to bathrooms for gender neutral students so that this issue can be avoided. But we stalled on talking about it more just because there wasn't a lot of student input. So I would be happy to ask Lenny to add another discussion to the May Health and Safety Committee meeting, if that's of interest. And then I guess, I don't know if anyone else wants to talk about the elevators, because I do have one other update I wanted to share from Health and Safety.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's just one quick thing I wanted to mention. We talked about it's been about a year since the whole school safety committee first started meeting, and we talked yesterday in the meeting about kind of coming out of a year of the plan in effect. Is there a way to monitor its efficacy? And I don't know if we didn't have quorum, and but we still had a pretty good discussion. But I think maybe at another meeting. I know the May meeting's only 3 weeks away. We could set an agenda item to talk about reviewing the implementation of the whole school safety committee, or sorry, whole school safety plan.
Thanks, Rachel. And Mr. Mitchell, you had your hand up.
I did, but I'll table that comment. I'll just will second Rachel's point as relates to definitely reviewing the whole school safety plan. So look forward to that conversation in May.
Great, and that is the next item is agenda items for the next meeting. So members, you should send those, and you can say them now as well. And also members of the community can propose agenda items. And go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear. I'll also be submitting a fundraising report. So I know we usually have them on there, but just to make sure it's on there. Yeah.
Okay, I think we don't have agenda. Oh, another hand. Go ahead.
I was actually just had a question, which is, will the next meeting be in person or virtual? I assumed we would continue with in-person meetings. I felt like this was quite productive, but I wasn't sure what the email said.
Hopefully we aren't going to end up in like the New York City situation that they have now, and we can plan for the May meeting like this again. And I mean, besides tormenting Troy with constant muting, if we could do the group mic thing that Kim suggested, that would be great. I think for these special meetings next week, they're almost all closed session, and they can be lengthy. They certainly were last year. So it makes more sense just to have that as a virtual meeting on Tuesday, and if we reconvene, we'll reconvene virtually for that as well. But there is public participation at the beginning of that. I don't think we have any other speakers who popped up or that we didn't cover. Okay, so seeing no further business, we can adjourn. Good night to those of you online.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.